Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new election prediction. We are exactly 2 months away from the 2024 election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris and Timothy Walz, the governor of Minnesota, former President Donald Trump, and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is the tickets. We have a lot of data to talk about today and a lot of things to go over since the last time we did a full election prediction. I've been kind of going state by state, but this is my full election prediction here as we're sitting here September 5th, again, 2 months away from Election Day. There's a lot to talk about. The polls have remained steady in Harris's, camp. Which is to be expected. I don't think anybody, and I don't know what the heck this ad is. I don't think anybody expected Donald Trump to necessarily win the popular vote. Obviously, this, you use RCP generally, but we haven't had a lot of data. There's been some data since this has been updated that Trump has led in the polls. So this +2 isn't really what it is now. They haven't added the September polls in here yet. But when you think about where we were at 4 years ago with Biden at a 7-point average lead, which that's the average. You had some polls coming out which had him 12, 16, 15 points ahead. And obviously it went down to the wire where he eventually won by about 4 points in the popular vote. And then obviously Hillary Clinton, again, 3.6, and she would end up winning the popular vote by about that margin, if I remember correctly. And so you normally want to look to RCP polling when you're doing this, but you're seeing a lot of things shift back into Donald Trump's column since we kind of are, turning our stride from that honeymoon phase. You look at the betting markets where they have Donald Trump ahead in most of the swing states, the ones that he needs at least, and Kamala Harris having to go campaign in Virginia, New Hampshire, Minnesota, in states where, if the polls were correct, where she was leading in some of these states like they say she is, she wouldn't have to be doing that. So let's fill out the map. Let's do it. Let's get it done. And we're going to start with the safe states for the Republicans. And so when I say safe states, it's going to be a completely red state, which means it will go to Donald Trump by 10 points or more. So if you look back at the 2020 race for office, you had a state like Missouri, the point totals 15 points here. So Missouri would be a safe state. And the same for New York for Joe Biden. He won this state by 23 points. That is a safe Democrat state. So let's start with it. Republicans will win Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. They'll win 4 of the electoral votes in Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, West Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Alaska. Being in their safe column. I'm also going to include Ohio in the safe column. I'm going to include Iowa in the safe column, and I'm going to include Florida in the safe column, which all 3 of those are newly added to the safe column for the Republicans. If you remember in 2020, Donald Trump took Florida by about 4 points, Ohio by about 7, and Iowa by about 9. I think all of those states shift more to the right, as we've seen over the past 4 years, all to be in Donald Trump's safe column. You also have the 2nd district in Maine, which will go to the Republicans by a safe margin. That's 1 electoral vote there in that state. So that is the safe states for the Republicans. Now let's fill it out for the Democrats. Kamala Harris will win Washington, Oregon, California, Illinois. She'll win D.C. electoral votes, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and as well as the 1st district in Maine, win Colorado by a safe margin, and that will be her. So right out of the gate. Oh, in New York, I can't forget New York. So that's right out of the gate for Kamala Harris. She's at 187, and Donald Trump right out of the gate is at 179 electoral votes. Now let's fill out the likely states. So the likely states are what would go to the candidate by, we mustn't forget Hawaii for a safe state for the Democrats. A likely state is what would go to a candidate by 5 to 9 or 6 to 9 points. So pretty likely they just don't get it by the safe margin. And we can start with the Democrats, and we'll go ahead and put New Mexico in that column for Kamala Harris. Hispanic vote generally goes to Donald Trump, and he's considerably polling better and performing better with the Hispanic vote in recent elections, and I think that New Mexico could get interesting more on the Senate level than the national ballot level. I mean, it wasn't a state that was particularly close in 2020. It was a 9-point advantage for Joe Biden. I do expect the state to move right, but not enough to put it in a lean margin or anything like that. Another safe state for the Democrats is I'm going to go ahead and put New Hampshire in there. I do understand that Kamala Harris is campaigning in New Hampshire today, I believe, either today or yesterday. And this is a state that, went to Biden by about 5, if I remember correctly. Yeah, about 7 in 2020. That shifted left from the 2016 race, which went down to the wire. I do expect Trump to make some gains, but I expect it to trend further left as we get closer. And we were back into the Republican primaries. New Hampshire was a hard state for Donald Trump to win against Nikki Haley. He did end up pulling that victory out, but by the skin of his teeth. I think he only won it by 8 or 9 points, which was the closest margin in the primary election. I'm also going to put Maine at large in a lean Democratic. I think Kamala Harris will take Maine at large by about 5 to 6 points. So this is much closer lean likely state for the Democrats, and so I'm going to put that in Kamala Harris's column as well. So she's at 202. All right, now for the Republicans, there's just one state that I'm going to put in the likely Republican state, and that's Texas. I think Texas will go to Donald Trump by a pretty lean margin, probably similar to the margin he had in 2020. I think it'll go further to the right. You'll have you got obviously Dallas here and San Antonio kind of shifting more to the left in 2020. I don't think Kamala Harris brings that appeal that Joe Biden did, and I think both of those cities will go further right, especially the rural areas and the suburban areas of Dallas and Austin and San Antonio. I think along the border, there's a lot of room for Donald Trump to improve, especially near El Paso. He can flip some of these counties, and I think it'll go even further right than it did in 2020, and it'll give him that state in a likely margin. So 219 for Donald Trump, 202 for Kamala Harris. Now let's talk about the lean states. So this is a state that's going to go to the candidate by 3 to 5 points. So 3 to 5 points for the candidate, and we'll start with the Democrats again, and I'll go ahead and start with the state of Minnesota. Now, I do know polling in Minnesota has been pretty tight. We haven't had any data from there in a while. If you look at the map right now, if you're just pull up the map and you look at Minnesota, they put it in that lean Harris state +5. We haven't seen any data. We've only seen this one poll that was, within 5. Minnesota polls generally underestimate Trump. Obviously, most polls do. So that's why I think it'll probably go to Harris by 4 to 5 points. Timothy Walz is not, doesn't help her in that state as much as people think he does. And I think that he actually underperformed Biden in a lot of areas when he was elected governor there. But I mean, it is still his home state, and I just don't see Trump. There's no reason Trump should be contesting it. I think against Biden, he had a better chance against Kamala and Timothy. All right, and I'm also going to put Nebraska's 2nd district in that lean Democratic column. I just think that, and I don't really understand why it shifted to the left in 2020, but Biden took it by 7. We haven't really seen any polling out of there. This is an important electoral vote actually for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trump thinks he can win it for him to put some kind of maybe do a rally there or something, because I do think it's a more important electoral vote than people are talking about. But for now, I have it in Kamala Harris's column because I just don't see it shifting that much further to the right to put it back into Trump's column like he won it in 2016. Okay, so we're also going to fill out the lean states for the Republicans, and I'm going to start with the state of North Carolina. I think, not in blue. North Carolina, I think, will go to Donald Trump by 2 to 4 points. Obviously, this is a state that's very hotly contested here. Joe Biden almost actually won this state in 2020. It moved left by probably about 2 points back then. But Donald Trump improved his vote share, which is something that a lot of people don't talk about. He really did improve, especially in the eastern parts of the states. I expect all of these parts of the states to go further to the right in 2024. Kamala Harris is not a likable candidate. I expect black turnout to be a little bit higher. or not higher, but probably equitable, especially in a lot of the parts on the western part of the state. The state trended to the right, but if you look, you look at historical since then, you look at the governor race that was there, this state went straight to I don't think I have it pulled up. I'm pretty dumb. But you look at the governor race when it did happen, that the state shifted back to the right. And I think Trump will have no problem winning the state if he gets his base out. The state party is very competent there. Our Republican Party is very competent there. The Democrats are not as competent there. They didn't run the best campaign in 2020. It was obviously a really bad electorate for Donald Trump, and he still was able to take the state. I think this is a much more favorable electorate for him. I don't think turnout will be high. I expect him to improve, especially in the eastern part of the state. I expect him to improve in the western part of the state. I think he takes it like he did in 2016 in that margin. I think he won it by 3 in 2016, so I expect that to be the case here in 2024. I do not believe that Harris will generate enough black turnout to win. She's likely performing worse than Biden did in 2020 in many of the rural areas. But I do think it's a state that Donald Trump should take seriously because it's a must-win for Donald Trump. I don't think he can lose North Carolina and expect to win the election this November. So I put that in the lean Republican state. I'm also going to put Nevada in the lean Republican state. I think Donald Trump's going to take Nevada, and I think I don't necessarily it's going to be close. We look at the election shuffle here. Obviously, 2020 it was about a 30,000 vote win for Joe Biden. So it went down to the wire. Obviously Nevada is all about Clark County. How close can Donald Trump get in Clark County? It shifted right in 2020. Believe it or not, it went further to the right. I expect it to go even further right when you look at what has happened even since then in the 2022 race. They flipped this governorship. Joe Lombardo won it over the incumbent Steve Sisolak, and he was endorsed by Donald Trump. Hispanics, obviously, as I mentioned a minute ago, vote for Donald Trump in a heavy way. He's favored in the betting odds. So I think if Clark County shifts a little bit more to the right, let's just put it. Not D plus 5. Let's put it R plus 5 here for the Republicans. I think it'll shift right, maybe even by 5 points. And then there's room for Donald Trump to grow in the western parts of the states, and I think he can get it right in between where he needs to win this November. So, he makes up some ground here, and 90,000 votes is cut down to 40,000 votes if he can bring it within 5, just like Joe Lombardo does. He has that endorsement from him. I think he can improve in Nye County. Maybe put that more to the right, maybe plus 5 there. You're going to have turnout down in the state as a whole. So you can probably bring this down a little bit, probably minus 5, whatever it is, and that right there puts Donald Trump over the top in Nevada, and I think it's going to be even more than this. I think they're going to be enthusiastic to vote for him, and I think he's going to win the state by 3 points and flip that back into the Republican column. He has a sizable lead in most of the polls we've seen out of Nevada. The polls generally do overestimate Republicans in Nevada for some reason, but they were dead on in 2020. They may overestimate Trump a little bit again. You see those polls like plus 5, plus 6. I don't think he's going to win it by that much. But I do think that they're going to take the state back, and I don't think it's really going to be that close, and it kind of puts Kamala Harris in a corner if Donald Trump is able to take some of these Sunbelt states and put them in his column. So that's going to be the lean states, and now the election will come down to these 5 states, or rather 6 states that are left, and we'll start on the left side here. We'll go with Arizona, and I'm going to put that in Donald Trump's column as of now. I think it's going to be close. I think Arizona is going to come down to the wire. I don't think necessarily that Arizona or that Trump is really helped by Kari Lake in Arizona. This is a state that Biden won by 10,000 votes. So Trump's got to find 10,000 votes here, and obviously the polling has looked just phenomenal for Donald Trump in Arizona. If we look at the polling in Arizona, Trump maintains about a 1-point lead, but he's won. CNN poll, he's up 5. The Hill, who's very left-leaning, is up 3. The Insider Advantage is up 1. Obviously Fox News, that's generally unfavorable to Donald Trump, believe it or not. You have Rasmussen with 2. He's ahead in all the polls. Biden was at this point plus 5 in 2020. He ended up taking the state by literally 10,000 votes. The markets have it all Donald Trump. I expect him to flip this state. And probably about 2 points. That's the only reason it's tilt. I don't think it's going to be like a 0.1. The Republican registration has waned ahead of the of 2020, but they've netted 130,000 registrations plus over the Democrats. They've out-registered the Democrats in this cycle. They're very much more competent than they were in 2020. And the border and the economy are huge issues there, and that's why Donald Trump keeps going there and discussing those issues and talking about those issues in this state. And that's exactly why he when he goes to the border, he goes to Arizona, and he goes and he's trying to appeal to those voters who are tired of seeing millions of people coming into this country. I expect Donald Trump to hold his own in Maricopa County. Obviously, that's the most important county. This is the county that Joe Biden won by about 2 points. I expect it to be closer. I expect this to be pretty much a toss-up in Maricopa County. So I'm going to put it, -2 for Republicans. So, if you bring that vote total down a little bit, that it's much closer. I think he's going to hold his own there. I think he has room to improve in some of the western parts of the state, especially in Apache and Kanikio. So if you put that in his column just by, 5 points or whatever, by very low stuff here, you got it right there. That's the margin you need. So he's only needing to find 10,000 votes. He's winning in all the polls. The border's a big issue. So even if 10,000 Biden voters don't get out to vote for Kamala Harris, I mean, that's the state that Donald Trump's going to win. And now he really backs Kamala Harris into a corner if he's able to go out there and win Nevada, North Carolina, and Arizona, because now he's only Pennsylvania away from winning the election, or Georgia and Wisconsin away from winning the election. So he's right there if he can get these states in his column. All right, so let's go to Wisconsin. I think this is the easiest state for Donald Trump to win. Obviously, polling hasn't looked the best for him, believe it or not, in Wisconsin. Kamala Harris maintains about a 1.54 lead. Trafalgar came out with the Donald Trump ahead there. It's such a hard state to poll, especially with Trump on the ticket. I think they had Biden up by like 10 in Wisconsin. I think this is the easiest state for him to flip, especially in this cycle, as far as in the Rust Belt, and I think I expect him to do that. Betting markets have Kamala Harris. They're obviously just responding to those polls, but obviously the biggest part of Wisconsin is the WOW counties here around Milwaukee. If you look at the shifts from 2016, Biden was able to galvanize that support and shift those back into the Democratic column. Obviously there's still Republican counties, but he's able to make gains there. I expect him to hold his own there. I think Harris is an awful fit for those counties. Madison is a problem, obviously. You look at Madison, Wisconsin. Trump, Biden's winning that by what is that? 53 points. That's a big problem. 260,000 votes right off the top of the ticket. But you're only looking at having to make up 20,000 votes, and if you feel like he can put these back in his column, if you put 4 here, Republican 4 in Waukesha County and Washington County, I think all of these shift back to Donald Trump in 2024, because again, I just feel like that Kamala Harris is just not the best candidate for these counties. And if she's not going to be a good candidate for these counties, then perhaps Donald Trump can go out there and galvanize his support back in these WOW counties and put this state back in his column. If you just shift them all by 5%, the Democrats' lead is down to 9,000 votes, and obviously you have room to grow. I don't think black turnout will be as high, so that's why I think Donald Trump will take this state and put this state back in his column. I think it'll go to him by 1 to 2 points, and he's going to crack into that blue wall that Kamala Harris has to hold practically every state, over here if she wants to win the election. Let's go to Michigan. Michigan has actually looked very interesting. You had a poll from the Detroit News that had Donald Trump up in Michigan. You had another poll right after that from well, I thought I had it up. I guess not. Well, you had this poll from Donald Trump leading in Michigan. There was another poll as well that had Donald Trump up in Michigan. RCP hasn't updated this. Obviously, Trafalgar had it as a tie. I think this state's going to go down to the wire. I think it's the hardest state for Donald Trump to flip back. Obviously, he fell short by 2.8 votes or so, 2.8% or so in 2020. I think it's the hardest one for him to flip. He has led in back-to-back polls there. If he were to win Michigan, it would be obviously game over for Harris. If Donald Trump goes out there and takes Michigan, he's getting Pennsylvania. I mean, it's not even a question. So, if he puts those in his column, then we're looking at an electoral landslide. I'm going to put it in Kamala Harris's column for now. I just think that the shifts there, the union workers, even though the Biden administration, just their policies are terrible for the auto industry. But I do think this state will go down the wire. I think it's a state that Donald Trump should contest, and I think it'll be much closer than it was in 2020. Kamala Harris does not appeal to the union workers that like Joe Biden did it in 2020, especially in a bad electorate for Donald Trump when you're talking about COVID, when you're talking about Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. So I'm going to put that in Kamala Harris's column for now. It could change, but we'll see. All right, let's go to Georgia. Georgia, obviously, to me, is one of the most crucial states in the 2016 election. This is a state that Joe Biden went out there and won, flipped into the Democratic column by just about 10,000 votes. So again, these states are just so close. This is one of the big 7 swing states where Donald Trump's vote share dropped between 2016 and 2020. I think there are several reasons why you can look at this and see why Donald Trump can go out there and win this state. I think this is going to go down to the wire, but you look at Fulton County and DeKalb County. Both of these counties came in strong for Joe Biden in 2020, and black turnout was really high. I don't expect black turnout to be that high, so I'm just going to adjust turnout by, say, 10% less, in Fulton County. Not saying that Donald Trump's going to gain there, but I'm just saying that the turnout might be about 10% less, there in that county. What happens? I mean, that puts Donald Trump right back on top. If you're taking just 10% of the votes in both of those counties, he doesn't even have to do anything in other states. I think it's a very winnable state for him. I don't know who's going to win. I really don't. I think it could come down to the wire. Obviously, we've seen some polls where Harris is leading. You can point to response bias for that. Again, this is a 0.1 spread for her. We haven't seen any polls. We haven't gotten into the September polls in here. This is a state that Donald Trump barely lost in 2020, and he won in 2016. I think it goes to him by the skin of his teeth. I do think he flips it back into his column. If I had to label it, I would say it's a toss-up state. I just think that it's going to be so close and down to the wire. But I do think at the end of the day, it's going to go to his column, and he's going to win the 16 electoral votes in the Peach State. But I do think Kamala Harris can win it. So I think it's a state that Donald Trump has to continue to improve in and not insult the governor there. That might be smart. All right, let's go to Virginia. Virginia is a state where Republicans really felt like they had a chance, especially against Joe Biden. This is a state you have to make up almost 500,000 votes. I mean, this is a state that Joe Biden won by 11. Obviously, you look at the Virginia race where Glenn Youngkin was able to go out there and win. You had the whole state shifting to the right, and getting all of those margins down. He went out there and won by 2%, 6,000,006. He's getting, about a good bit of the vote. He obviously improved in a lot of these areas, and Trump has his endorsement. I expect the race to be close. I'm going to put it in Kamala Harris's column for now. I don't expect Donald Trump to win there. I think it's a state that he could contest, but I mean, maybe you could run some rallies, up here in the eastern side of Pennsylvania, so you can, go to kind of quote unquote both states. But it's not something that I think Donald Trump needs to win, obviously, and he doesn't have to go out there and get that state. All right, let's go to Pennsylvania. This is the final state. I'm on the board that Pennsylvania is going to go to Donald Trump by probably more of a margin than in 2000, than in even Georgia. You look at Pennsylvania polls right now. You had Hillary Clinton up by 6, or whatever it was. You had Biden up by 3, ended up winning it by 2, I think. So right now, that's a statistical tie, and we've seen some polls since then. Again, they haven't updated that for September. You look at this state, Joe Biden was able to really, galvanize a lot of the base in eastern Pennsylvania. He was able to appeal to all of the, Scranton Joe, even though it was all fake. This state is the most undoubtedly crucial state in the swing state for the 2024 election. Again, it's not something that Donald Trump needs, right? We already have him at 278. That would be enough. But it's something that if he were able to go out there and get, if you put Pennsylvania in his column, it just unlocks so many electoral paths for Donald Trump to win the presidency. And it puts Kamala Harris in almost, do or die situation. She would have to pretty much win out the rest of the states, which is not likely. So Pennsylvania is a state. This is why Donald Trump is spending so much time in it, because he knows if he wins it, he is in the best position possible to go out there and win. It's undoubtedly the most crucial. It's undoubtedly the most contested, and we'll see what happens. You know, we mentioned Biden's appeal to Eastern Pennsylvania. I don't think Kamala has that same appeal to Eastern Pennsylvania, and I know for a fact that Timothy Walz definitely doesn't. You know, J.D. Vance is probably a better fit for the western part of the state that did shift left in 2020, but I expect the black turnout to be lower. Party registration data is booming for Republicans. They're leading their Democrats, and a lot of that they're gaining ground from 2020. There's actually a much more Hispanic vote, especially in Pennsylvania and stuff like that. You know, Philadelphia, shifted to the right. I think Donald Trump can improve there. You know, you're only talking about trying to find, 80,000 votes. You know, you think of all the ways he can get it. I'm going to put it in Trump's column for now, and I think he's going to win it by 1.5 to 2 points. I think he will. So I think, again, it's going to be closer in Georgia, in my opinion, than it will be in Pennsylvania. So this is my election prediction for now. Donald Trump, 297. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris at 241. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll do more videos as we get closer and closer to the election, and it's 2 months from right now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.